Welcome to ActiveLab, the official podcast of Active San Gabriel Valley. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Jeshow Yang of API Forward Movement. Jeshow is the program manager of the Sustainable SGV program at APIFM, and he's also a resident of the city of Alhambra. And today, that's why we're here in Alhambra Park. If you're just listening, you may hear a little bit of background noise. We're right next to the intersection of Marengo and Alhambra Road, where the city of South Pasadena meets the city of Alhambra. And as mentioned, Jeshow has been a resident here in the city a long time and been working with the community over the past several years to advance multimodal transit and clean air programs and projects. So we're really excited to have him here today with us because the city marked a major milestone recently and kind of its adoption of a more holistic view of transportation in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the first time the city of Alhambra has ever created a holistic active transportation plan. I mean, we have a lot of cities around us, city of LA, city of Pasadena, Monterey Park. They've all established some sort of active transportation plan. And one of the unfortunate issues is just that there are many cities who don't have some sort of active transportation plan and has pushed forward for implementation. And unfortunately, Alhambra, for the longest time, has been one of those cities. There's connections from City of Los Angeles on Huntington Drive, as well as from South Pasadena. There's a bike lane here on Marengo, and it just completely ends in the city of Alhambra. So it's really exciting to see that for the first time ever, we're going to see some sort of bike lanes. And unfortunately, the city of Alhambra has not had any bike lane so far. The only time we've seen it is the temporary pop-up that Active SGV created on Poplar, and lots of residents were excited about it. There are a lot of folks who are wanting to have this, and it's been many years coming. And I think part of it is because there's been a new wave of progressive folks on the city council pushing for this type of plan.
I was just thinking a lot of the cities around you adopted their first plans 10 years ago in 2014. San Gabriel, Monterey Park, El Monte, Baldwin Park, South El Monte. All those cities a decade ago passed the plans, and I know passing a plan is just the first step. So many of them have done some implementation, and you mentioned Alhambra doesn't have any bike lanes currently. So how do you feel? Alhambra had 10 years more wisdom than maybe some of their neighbors did insofar as adopting a plan. How do you feel the final plan came out? Is it stronger than its neighbors, or is Alhambra's kind of setting the bar, hopefully? Or yeah, what's your sense of that?
Yeah, I would say on the bike plan portion, they're rather ambitious. I was rather surprised with how many proposed bike forward class lanes there are for the high comfort network, as well as their most extended network. And thanks to us talking to some of the city council members, addressing some of our concerns, they included additional north-south connections along Fremont. It's bordering streets next to Fremont, as well as another connection from west to east as well, to really try to connect for the rest of the city to San Gabriel as well as to Monterey Park. But I'm really hoping that we talk about that implementation phase. Like you said, a lot of plans are just sitting and collecting dust, and I think Measure HLA was just an indicator that a lot of voters, a lot of residents are just tired of how slow some of these city councils have been moving, that they want to see actual implementation for some of these bike lanes and safe street infrastructure. So I'm really hoping that we can look at all sorts of funding. I mean, grants the city is going for. I know they're hiring Alta Planning for this. There's also some funding from Measure R that's coming in from the Cancel 710 extension. I'm really hoping to push some of that. They've already allocated $14.4 million for that, which will help along the way. I'm hoping to try to push for more of that funding so that we can, instead of piecemeal putting things together, like unfortunately City of LA and some of these other locations, we can have holistically created ones that residents can actually enjoy perusing, like some of these major destinations like parks or even downtown Alhambra. Unfortunately, it's just so dangerous on these major corridors like Fremont Avenue, on Main Street, and thankfully, outreach from Active SGV, doing some collecting feedback from residents, there is a renewed desire for these type of infrastructure. So I'm really hoping that we can move from just planning, making sure the plan isn't collecting dust, to actual implementation that's progressive and collecting input from residents.
Yeah, I think Alhambra's really fortunate in that it's a relatively flat city and it's quite compact. So it should be really walkable and bikeable. And hopefully, I know we've seen some of the other communities, Temple City, for example, the first in the valley to do a protected bikeway, but it's a very short protected bikeway just along one street that doesn't connect to much else. But it sounds like Alhambra may be learning from the mistake of others of just doing one-off projects and looking to establish more of a network from the get-go to make it more feasible for people to get around by bike.
Yeah, I mean, the number one issue with bike lanes is just that, I mean, even a lot of city staff say, it just leads to nowhere. So if we actually have a developed network of webs going out to like these major destinations, people will be more likely to use them. I mean, I drive by the Temple City one all the time. It looks fantastic, and I would love to have something like that in our city of Alhambra, but the unfortunate issue is that it just suddenly leads to nothing. And hopefully we can get a bigger web of protected class bike lanes, especially around like elementary schools or some of these major parks. I always hear about how even residents across the street from these parks, they have a hard time just crossing the street to get here. And same with Granada Park, where residents are right across the street. They don't even have like a safe crosswalk. People just speed past really fast and don't really have that disregard, or just disregard some of these pedestrians trying to access some of their local amenities. And for me, I would love to see some sort of speed reduction or infrastructure that will slow down vehicles, whether that's speed humps, speed tables, or even flashing crosswalks, some sort of infrastructure that would slow down cars around parks. I mean, especially if there's tons of children that goes into these parks. Sometimes they might accidentally kick a soccer ball into the street, and the last thing we want is for a car to just randomly speed through and didn't see them while they were trying to go pick up that soccer ball.
So is that something you heard a lot as the plan was being developed from residents, community members, issues on pedestrian safety or families being able to get to school outside of a car? What were the other kind of common themes that came up a lot?
Yeah, definitely a lot about inaccessibility to parks. A lot of, I feel unsafe walking my kid to school. I mean, I have spoken to multiple parents when they used to walk their kids to school, but things changed. Lots of cars started driving a lot faster. Why risk their kids' lives on the way to some of their schools? They only live 5 minutes walking distance, but now they are driving 5 minutes walking or driving distance for the sake of safety. And I really think that we can even reduce some of that congestion that a lot of the city council members have been talking about, as well as just regional wide, by encouraging parents and their kids to walk to some of the local schools. And it provides some of those benefits for them. There's lots of studies talking about how if you have a good route to the school, if you have a good environment with trees and shade, or even providing that on campus, it improves behavior of the students, improves academic performance, and it also just improves the livelihood of residents all around us.
Yeah, and I'm sure it improves the lives of the teachers themselves because the students are better able to focus in class, and they have that physical outlet that's so important. I think we all do better if we have a little, physical activity to start our day off. I think it boosts your mental health as well as all the physical health benefits.
Yeah, definitely.
So in terms of next steps, you mentioned the city the city council has already set aside $14 million in Measure R7, and this is funding from the 710 freeway that is being repurposed for local projects now. So they have that's a very significant sum. I would say that's almost more than most of the neighboring cities have utilized to implement their existing plans over the past 10 years, with the exception, of course, LA, much larger city. Mm-hmm. How soon do you think people will be able to start seeing physical improvements or projects actually, coming to life?
Yeah, that's a question I'm not sure if I can answer. All I know is that they've recently allocated that funding, and I mean, I would love to see it being spent ASAP. I mean, I've heard from Hilda Solis's office, and there's a strong interest for multimodal transit to push forward. And one of the examples that we see is Pasadena. They're allocating some of those funds for better transit stops, better bus stops, roundabouts, more bike lanes, so many fantastic additions to their city that makes it more walkable and safer for them. But unfortunately, in terms of the implementation, I can't really answer that in terms of the timeline. Ideally, I would like to have as much residential input because they are going to be asking surrounding residents on how would you like the designs to be, how do you think this will benefit you, which I think makes total sense. We should definitely have residential input about any issues when they're crossing the street, or if there's folks who are biking, what do you see as a problematic intersection? What have you seen in terms of like, do people actually stop at these stop signs? Do we need to put more speed bumps? Is that required? And I think the plan goes over a broad view, and they have some of these pedestrian priority zones and bike lane zones, but some of the implementation will definitely require more details from residents. And I'd love to have more residents provide that feedback and see what is the local problems that we might not see from an initial study.
So the initial plan is relatively high level, but the specific street by street or intersection by intersection projects, those haven't been designed yet. And so there will be opportunities for people to engage in that. And it sounds like there will be choices as well. So the street we're at right here, Alhambra Road, I believe is in the plan, as well as Marengo, which turns into Palm right here at the city border. There are recommendations for bikeways along both, but it could be either a painted bike lane or it could be a protected bikeway. Is that correct?
That's right, that's right. I mean, ideally we would do protected bike lane because, I mean, they already have a bike lane here into the city of South Pasadena. I mean, we just saw bicyclists coming by right now. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks who feel unsafe riding on Palm/Marengo because of folks that have to see this oncoming traffic. Alhambra Road is one of those busy roads that have been problematic for a lot of residents. Even if you just keep going down the street, you'll see Garfield Elementary School. Parents complain about even just walking their kids across Alhambra Road. Imagine having people who are cycling around this area being able to cross this problematic intersection where people are just unfortunately speeding through some of these stop signs. Well, I would love to see protected bike lanes myself instead of just painted on, because people will just back up, there's a lot of blind spots. If we have it protected, then cyclists feel more safe, and therefore more likely to use it, and that's one less car that's adding to our streets, and thus making the entire environment better with less air pollution, and for folks to be able to more safely cross these multiple, very busy corridors.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if one of the goals is really to allow children and older adults or folks who are just more risk averse to get around by bike or by scooter or other active modes of transit, then having that protection between the moving vehicles is really important. I know I have 2 children and they both love riding bikes, and I'd love for them to be able to ride their bikes to school at their elementary level now on their own, but talking to many other parents, even riding with them right now is really challenging. And we don't have a bike lane yet, but if it was just a painted bike lane, I don't know if I would, knowing how much I know about just safety and the cars getting bigger and bigger and more people driving trucks and SUVs, which of course aren't as safe for pedestrians or folks riding bikes. It's a challenge. I think if the goal is really to make it possible for people to get around, then the city would have to invest in the safest option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I know South Pass Active, they have like a bike program.
The bike bus, yeah.
The bike bus, yeah, that's right. Where they have like lots of kids riding with them. And it feels rather unfortunate. Why would we have to have a large group in order for us to feel safe riding through the streets that we pay tax money for and actually maintain and try to get our kids to school in a healthy way, get some exercise before they get to school, and after school they can enjoy a leisurely ride back home. I mean, I personally, I used to ride my bike a lot when I was in college and even before that, but I didn't have any protected bike lanes or any bike lanes at all, and I had to ride along major corridors. And a long time ago, I got hit by a car just riding my bike, and people were just not paying attention to stop signs like this. And because they weren't paying attention, looking both ways, seeing if there's a cyclist there, unfortunately I got hit and had to go to the hospital. And ever since then, I've been just very careful, like, oh, if I go to the stop sign, I gotta be extra vigilant because there might be a car. I mean, cars are one-ton object that could absolutely annihilate a pedestrian or a cyclist. So for me, I mean, I have personal investment in making sure that people can get through some of these major stop signs. And unfortunately, we just continue seeing that there's vehicles who are wanting to get to the destination faster, so they might speed a little bit. They might like not watch out as carefully as they would like if they're late to work. But I don't think our lives should be on the line for the sake of someone who might be late to work or someone who wants to get there like a minute earlier.
So I know you and the team at APIFM have done a lot of work in the community of Alhambra over the past, I don't know, must be at least 10 years now. For folks who are interested in supporting, the implementation of this plan, and I know y'all are doing a lot of other great projects, including, improving park space and capturing stormwater and more. How can folks engage or stay up to date? Because I think in our experience, a lot of times there are these windows of opportunity, right? When maybe the city council has the chance to go after a grant or has to vote on which design, the safer one or the less safe, option to implement. How can folks connect and engage and support your efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. We do have a mailing list at APIFM or APIFM.org, where you can find a contact us location and you can join our mailing list, where we'll send out information about upcoming actions. And if you reach out to us directly, we can make sure to let you know about any particular actions that might be taking place in the city of Alhambra or Martin Park, so that we can focus on a stronger implementation of bike lanes, ones that's actually more safe for a lot of cyclists or pedestrians around the area. And we could use all the help we can get. Like, having that additional face at City Council means so much for us as well as the council members, because that's one more big perspective for someone who's willing to go out of their day, their full-time job, to speak about their own livelihoods, about their own experiences on some of these major corridors and their own lived experiences accessing major amenities that all residents should have, like this amazing park in Alhambra Park.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you again for all your work in the community here and helping really encourage the local elected officials and city staff to move forward with adopting an active transportation plan. Alhambra won't be the last in the San Gabriel Valley. I think there's still a couple outliers like San Marino that needs a plan, but we're excited to see Alhambra move forward and hopefully assume a leadership role in the San Gabriel Valley in terms of implementing a plan more rapidly than maybe some of its neighbors had. But that pretty much closes out this episode of ActiveLab, so thank you again for joining us. Thanks, Jeshow, for taking the time. If you'd like to stay in touch with Active SGV, you can follow us on our social media at Active SGV. We also have a monthly newsletter too, which you can find at activesgv.org. And if you'd like to support our work, including this podcast, you can do so by becoming a contributing member. And we of course welcome donations at any level, as I'm sure APIFM does. And we have some nice SGV merch that you're eligible to receive if you sign up. So until the next time, thanks again.
Of course. Thank you for having me.